A baby's diaper is one of the most ordinary objects in the modern world. Parents buy them by the box, change them without a second thought, and throw them away in seconds. But what if you had to raise a child without one? No disposable diapers, no cloth diapers with snaps, not even safety pins. For most of human history, that was exactly how parents lived. The story of diapers isn't just about baby care, it's a story of survival, invention, hygiene, and how one everyday object quietly transformed family life across the globe. Our journey begins more than 5,000 years ago, in the world's earliest civilizations. In ancient Mesopotamia, where cities first rose between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, parents had no manufactured diapers. Instead, babies were wrapped in simple cloths, woven from flax or wool whenever families could afford them. Poorer households often relied on whatever natural materials were available. Cleanliness depended not on technology, but on constant attention from caregivers. Along the Nile in ancient Egypt, life revolved around the rhythms of the river. Linen made from flax was one of Egypt's greatest resources, and wealthier families used soft linen strips to wrap infants. Yet diapers were nothing like today's absorbent products. They were simply barriers that had to be washed and reused repeatedly. Mothers, servants, and older siblings spent countless hours cleaning, drying, and re-wrapping cloth by hand beneath the hot Egyptian sun. Across ancient China, parents developed remarkably practical solutions using materials from nature. Soft grasses, paper made from plant fibers, and carefully prepared cloth could all serve as padding. In colder regions, moss and other absorbent plants were sometimes placed inside wrappings to reduce moisture. These methods varied from village to village, but they shared one goal: keeping babies warm, dry enough, and healthy in a world without modern sanitation. Far to the north, indigenous peoples in North America adapted to their own environments with extraordinary ingenuity. Many communities lined cradle boards with soft moss, shredded bark, cattail fluff, or other absorbent natural materials. These could be replaced quickly and were often surprisingly effective. Rather than relying on a single invention, each culture refined techniques that matched its climate and available resources. The Roman Empire brought another chapter to infant care. Roman families commonly swaddled newborns tightly in strips of cloth, believing firm wrapping encouraged healthy growth. Underneath, reusable fabric served much the same purpose as a primitive diaper. Wealthy households could afford better fabrics and servants to wash them, while poorer families often reused worn clothing or scraps of linen. In crowded Roman cities where sanitation was already a challenge, keeping infants clean required enormous daily effort. Yet despite these differences, one thing united parents across the ancient world. There was no magical solution. Every diaper had to be washed, dried, repaired, and used again. Every accident meant more work. Raising a child demanded an endless cycle of cleaning that consumed hours every single day. As centuries passed, those routines changed very little. When Europe entered the Middle Ages, infant care remained deeply rooted in tradition. Babies were usually wrapped tightly in swaddling bands that limited movement for months at a time. Beneath those layers, simple cloths absorbed waste as best they could. Running water was rare, soap was expensive, and laundry itself required intense physical labor. Cleaning diapers meant hauling water from wells, heating it over open fires, scrubbing fabric by hand, and hanging everything to dry regardless of the weather. For poorer families, even spare cloth was a luxury. Old shirts, worn-out blankets, flour sacks, and damaged linens were cut into reusable squares. Nothing was wasted. Every piece of fabric had value, and every diaper represented hours of work before it ever reached a baby. This difficult reality also shaped parenting itself. Babies were often changed less frequently than modern parents would consider acceptable, not because caregivers lacked concern, but because constant washing demanded time, fuel, water, and physical strength. Entire households shared responsibility, with grandparents, siblings, and neighbors helping whenever possible. Meanwhile, in many parts of Asia, Africa, and the Americas, communities continued developing their own practical approaches, using combinations of cloth, plant fibers, natural absorbents, and attentive caregiving. There was no universal diaper. Instead, cultures solved the same problem in remarkably different ways. For thousands of years, the diaper remained less an invention than a daily routine. But everything was about to change. New machines, new fabrics, and a rapidly industrializing world would transform one of humanity's oldest household chores into a global industry worth billions of dollars. By the late 18th century, the Industrial Revolution was reshaping everyday life. Steam-powered factories, mechanized textile mills, and mass production transformed clothing, household goods, and eventually the way parents cared for their children. For the first time in history, cloth became cheaper, more consistent, and easier to replace. While diapers were still reusable, families could now own more of them than ever before. Cotton quickly became the preferred material. Softer than coarse linen and easier to wash, it made infant care slightly more comfortable for both babies and parents. Yet the daily routine remained exhausting. Diapers still had to be soaked, scrubbed, boiled, dried, folded, and reused. A single child could go through dozens of cloth changes every week, turning laundry into one of the largest household chores. As cities expanded during the 19th century, concerns about hygiene also began to change. Scientists slowly uncovered the connection between germs and disease, overturning centuries of misconceptions. Cleanliness was no longer seen as simply a matter of appearance, it became a matter of health. Parents were encouraged to wash children's clothing more frequently, and manufacturers began advertising cleaner, softer, and more sanitary fabrics. One small invention would make an enormous difference. In 1849, the American inventor Walter Hunt patented the modern safety pin. Although he never imagined its future role in childcare, the simple clasp became the perfect fastener for cloth diapers. Before safety pins, parents relied on knots, ribbons, or crude ties that could easily come loose. Suddenly, fastening a diaper became faster, more secure, and far more practical. By the early 20th century, the familiar image of a white cloth diaper folded into shape and secured with oversized safety pins had become common throughout North America and Europe. Rubber pants were often worn over the cloth to reduce leaks. While this helped protect clothing and furniture, it introduced another problem. Rubber trapped heat and moisture against the baby's skin, frequently causing discomfort and painful diaper rash. Parents accepted these inconveniences because there simply wasn't a better alternative. The decades surrounding the First World War and the Great Depression brought further improvements in textile manufacturing, but diapers remained fundamentally unchanged. Washing services appeared in some growing cities, allowing families to send dirty diapers away for cleaning and receive fresh ones in return. It saved time, but not everyone could afford the service, and cloth diapers still dominated nearly every nursery. Then came World War II. The war accelerated advances in plastics, synthetic fibers, and manufacturing technologies. Materials originally developed for military use would soon find peaceful applications in everyday homes. Engineers who had spent years solving industrial problems now had the tools to rethink ordinary household products, including diapers. One of the most important breakthroughs came not from a large corporation, but from a frustrated mother. In the late 1940s, Marion Donovan grew tired of changing soaked bedding caused by traditional cloth diapers. Rather than accepting the problem, she began experimenting at home. Using waterproof shower curtain material, she created a reusable cover that prevented leaks while allowing better airflow than heavy rubber pants. Her invention, later known as the boater, was initially rejected by several manufacturers who believed parents would never buy such a product. But Donovan persisted. When her design finally reached the market, it became an enormous success. Mothers immediately recognized that someone had solved a problem they had struggled with for generations. Donovan didn't stop there. She also envisioned a fully disposable diaper made from absorbent paper instead of cloth. At the time, manufacturers dismissed the concept as impractical and too expensive. Yet the idea had already been planted. During the 1950s, companies across Europe and the United States quietly began experimenting with disposable diaper prototypes. Early versions were bulky, uncomfortable, and often secured with plastic pants worn over the top. They were far from perfect, but they represented something completely new, a diaper designed to be used once and thrown away. The real breakthrough arrived when engineer Victor Mills, working for Procter & Gamble, approached the problem from a manufacturing perspective. Rather than simply improving cloth diapers, Mills asked a more radical question. What if parents never had to wash diapers again? Drawing on advances in absorbent materials and mass production, his team developed a product that would become one of the most influential consumer inventions of the 20th century. It would soon be introduced under a name that millions of parents around the world would recognize. Pampers. The launch of disposable diapers didn't just introduce a new product. It challenged thousands of years of parenting tradition, promising convenience on a scale previous generations could hardly imagine. But convincing families to abandon reusable cloth would prove far more difficult than the inventors expected. In 1961, Procter & Gamble officially introduced Pampers to the American market. The first versions looked crude by today's standards. They were thick, somewhat bulky, and more expensive than traditional cloth diapers. Many parents were skeptical. Why pay for something that would simply be thrown away? But convenience has a powerful way of changing habits. Instead of spending hours soaking, scrubbing, boiling, and hanging diapers to dry, parents could simply remove a used diaper and replace it with a fresh one in seconds. For families with multiple children, or for mothers increasingly joining the workforce, the time saved was revolutionary. As demand grew, manufacturers competed to improve every aspect of the product. Diapers became thinner, lighter, and more comfortable. Adhesive tapes replaced safety pins, eliminating one of the biggest safety concerns for parents. Elastic leg openings reduced leaks, while better designs allowed babies to crawl and walk more naturally. Throughout the 1970s and 1980s, one innovation changed everything once again: superabsorbent polymers. These remarkable materials could absorb many hundreds of times their own weight in liquid, while locking moisture away from the baby's skin. Instead of remaining wet like traditional cloth, modern diapers kept the surface much drier, helping reduce irritation and improving comfort. To many parents, it felt almost like magic. Behind the scenes, however, the technology represented decades of advances in chemistry, materials science, and manufacturing. Every layer inside a modern diaper was carefully engineered. A soft inner lining protected the skin. Distribution layers spread moisture evenly. Superabsorbent crystals trapped liquid. Waterproof outer materials prevented leaks while remaining flexible enough for active children. What had once been little more than folded cloth had become one of the most sophisticated everyday products found in a home. By the end of the 20th century, disposable diapers had spread across much of the world. Billions were produced every year, supported by massive factories operating around the clock. Entire industries developed around baby care, introducing diapers designed for newborns, overnight use, swimming, premature infants, and different stages of childhood. Yet this success created an entirely new challenge. Unlike cloth diapers that could be washed and reused for years, disposable diapers generated enormous amounts of waste. Environmental researchers estimated that billions of diapers entered landfills annually, where many materials could take centuries to break down. The convenience that families valued so highly also came with long-term environmental costs. As awareness of sustainability increased, many parents began looking for alternatives. Modern cloth diapers returned, not as simple squares of cotton secured with safety pins, but as highly engineered reusable products with adjustable snaps, waterproof breathable fabrics, removable absorbent inserts, and stylish designs. They combined centuries-old reusability with modern textile technology. At the same time, manufacturers invested heavily in biodegradable materials, plant-based fibers, and production methods designed to reduce environmental impact. Although no perfect solution has yet emerged, the diaper continues to evolve just as it has for thousands of years. Looking back, the history of diapers is really the history of parenting itself. Every civilization faced the same challenge: keeping babies clean, healthy, and comfortable with the materials available at the time. Ancient Egyptians relied on linen. Indigenous communities used moss and natural fibers. Medieval families recycled every scrap of cloth they owned. Industrial factories made cotton affordable. Inventors like Marion Donovan questioned traditions that had lasted for centuries. Engineers transformed chemistry into products capable of absorbing astonishing amounts of liquid. And today's designers continue searching for solutions that balance convenience with environmental responsibility. Few people ever stop to think about the object they throw away after changing a baby. Yet hidden inside that ordinary diaper is a story stretching back more than 5,000 years, a story of innovation born from one of humanity's oldest responsibilities. Sometimes the inventions that change the world aren't the loudest or the most glamorous. They don't fly through the sky or connect continents. Instead, they quietly improve everyday life, one family at a time. The next time you see a diaper, remember that you're looking at the latest chapter in a journey that began long before recorded history, a journey shaped by countless parents, inventors, and cultures, all trying to solve the same timeless problem: how to give every child the healthiest possible start in life.